Welcome to TCC Online. We're glad you guys could join us today. My name is Brennan. We have Brian with us, Mandy, and Mike. We're glad you guys are here. Would you worship along with us? I saw Satan fall like lightning. I saw darkness run for cover. But the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. I believe in signs and wonders. I have resurrection power. Still the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. My praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. My Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Whoa. Come together, sons and daughters, bought with blood and washed in water. Sing the praises of the Spirit, Son and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Our God will finish what He started. My testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. My Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Whoa. Not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not dead. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. Oh, I believe. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Whoa.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to TCC. My name is Ben, and let me just say thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to spend it with us here at TCC. So maybe this is your first time ever checking us out. If that is the case, that is awesome. I am glad that you are here. But in the chat, you're gonna see a link pop up. Click that link, fill out the form, and we will send you a gift just for doing that. A really cool gift too. So we're in part 4 of our series, 800-pound gorilla, where we're talking about our mental health, we're talking about our mind, we're talking about the 800-pound gorilla that lives inside there that just creates chaos in our lives, and some practical steps on how to combat it and how to live a better life. And like I said, if this is your first time, maybe you missed part 1, 2, and 3, you can always jump onto tcconline.tv and get caught up there. So maybe you're thinking about getting baptized. That's awesome. You know, baptism is an awesome public proclamation that you're putting Jesus as the center of your life, and that's awesome. If you are interested, we're gonna also in the chat drop a link. Click that link, connect with a chat host, and we will figure that out, figure out what campus, how to make that happen for you. So with that said, let's jump into some more music and buckle up because it's gonna be an awesome service.
Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. I've still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. So I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I built my life on Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. No, he won't.
And yes, I did come to church high. I came to church hurting. But I came to church thirsting because I wanted what you guys have. I wanted to be that part of that family. Back whenever I was an addict, I was homeless in Du Bois. I was a homeless junkie. I had wanted to quit so many times, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. It was the worst hell I'd ever gone through. I had lost 3 people I loved very much to suicide in a 5 weeks period, 5 weeks time. So the best thing that happened to me was going to jail. And after that, a few times, I begged my counselor, I can't live this life anymore. I can't. I'm hurting everybody I love. Can you please get me into rehab? So I went to Somerset to rehab. I had been looking for help to get my first apartment in Du Bois for rental help. And my landlord at the time had sent me to Tri-County to ask for help. And I walked through the doors and I met Angel, and I saw above her was the word hope. And I broke down in tears because I've been searching for the meaning of hope for so long. And she told me, hold on, pain ends. And honestly, I knew I was home. I knew that this was the place that I was supposed to be. And that I knew if I just held in and held on, that God would save my life, and he did. I haven't had anything since January 25th, and it'll be 3 years. And I know that I wouldn't have had that power if I had to walk alone, if I had to walk without God guiding me. I should have passed away so many times from my addiction. But God kept sparing my life because he knew that I would have a greater purpose. And sitting in the church chairs, every single Sunday, as much as I could be there, and just hearing the message, I felt God's love flow over me. I felt his power, his word, and I began to reclaim who I was before all the drugs. And even better, other than my own family, I'd never met people who genuinely just wanted to love on me until I was able to love myself. I never knew that people like that existed in this world, that they still exist. And it still brings tears to my eyes. Just all the love that I feel. We're just, we're out there, we're loving on one another. We're helping each other. When one's fallen, we help them up. When we're fallen, someone's there to help us up. And that's just the way that God has planned. We're supposed to love each other. Just know that there are people out there who have been in your shoes, who've walked your steps, and you can make it out of your hell too. All you have to do is reach out to someone, anyone, and somebody will be there to pick you up. Life is so much better on the other side of addiction. You can't even imagine the blessings. I never knew life could be so wonderful. I never knew I could find happiness and family, and you just have to reach out and take that first step. That's all you have to do. If you're hurting, please reach out. Someone will help you.
Well, I absolutely love hearing stories like Angels. In fact, it's one of my most favorite part of what I get to do every week, hearing stories like Angel stories about how God has just shown up in such an amazing way in people's lives. And I just wanted you to know, that's really what TCC is all about. We are on mission with God to impact, the lives of people across all of our local communities and beyond. So when you give generously, you're saying to God, God, I trust you with my finances. And you're saying to God, hey, God, I want to join you in your mission of the church to impact the lives of people. So for those of you giving generously, thank you. If you haven't taken that step yet, I just want to ask you, take the step. Trust God with your finances and join God in the mission of his church. It's super simple to give online. It's what my wife and I do. So you can just click in the link provided for you. It's super simple and safe. And when you give, know that God is going to show up in such amazing ways as you join him in what he is doing.
So we want to be very deliberate about how we take Jesus into the community, how important it is that we love first, how we strive to be the light in the darkness. There's so much going on in our world today, so much chaos. I think we can really use the church, the mission God's called us to be so critical to what we want.
Well, it's so good to have all of you with us today. I just want to extend a warm welcome for all of those of you connecting across all of our churches and those of you online. My name is Chris, and we're in this fourth part of this series, 800-pound gorilla. And across all of the series, I keep pointing your attention to, our resource page. If you go to tcconline.tv, click on 800-pound gorilla, you'll find our resources there. Why is this so important? Well, this series, we want to breathe hope into you, but also provide help. There's a 3-episode podcast that we recorded with licensed counselor Chelsea Brown. Super practical, super insightful. Please listen, watch that. We also have a couple links to virtual counseling resources. Maybe you have a local counselor that you just connect with. Go to that person. But if you're not sure where to go, again, just a helpful next step on your mental health journey. Well, across this series, we've been looking at following the story of a guy named Elijah. He was a prophet of God, picked by God to be God's spokesperson. And as we've looked at Elijah's life, it just reflects your life and my life. Like, we can see what happens, the impact, when the 800-pound gorilla, starts wreaking havoc in your life. And Elijah follows this 3-step cycle. And again, it's the same 3-step cycle that I've gone through, that I'm going through, and that more than likely all of you are going through. You see, when the 800-pound gorilla starts to, enforce its power and will, what happens? We want to escape. It's the amygdala in our brain, the fight or flight response. It's powerful when we see a threat. But when we think there's a threat, when we think that there might be danger tomorrow or the day after, for Elijah, it's when he got a note from a messenger that said, by this day tomorrow, you're going to die. And just the thought of a fear, of a threat, caused him to run. And after we escape, after Elijah escapes, we move on to the second part of the cycle, and we isolate. Elijah leaves his assistant, his servant, and then he wanders into the wilderness alone. And we do this. We physically isolate from each other, but we also mentally isolate, don't we? And we looked in part 2 of how we will mentally isolate. And then once we're isolated, the third step in the cycle always happens. We ruminate. The thoughts that enter our mind that we will churn over and over and over and over again. And for Elijah, he's just ruminating. He gets to a place where he's like, I've had enough. You see, in part 3, we looked at this triangle that our thoughts, it all starts in our mind with our thoughts. Our thoughts influence our emotions, our feelings, which always influences our behaviors. So many times we think that we're just keeping our thoughts in our mind, but no one can tell. But it always comes out by what we do. And that's why the Bible over and over again says, hey, take captive your thoughts and make them obedient to Jesus. Take captive your thoughts. What happens in your mind will direct influence your emotions, which will direct influence your behaviors, what you do. And that's why we have to understand the reality of the 800-pound gorilla and the cycle that we get trapped in. But here's the thing, we don't have to stay trapped in the cycle. And what you're going to see today is, well, there's a powerful step that you can take to not stay trapped in the influence of the 800-pound gorilla. Well, where we left off in the story in part 3, again, Elijah is in a really bad place. He's literally told God, hey, just take my life. I'm done here. Be done with me. He's by himself. He's ruminating. And this is where we're going to step into the story. We're told in verse 5 that Elijah, he laid down underneath the bush, the broom bush, this 6 to 8 foot tall kind of tree, but it was really wide. So he laid down underneath that to protect himself from the elements, from the sun, from other animals. So he laid down underneath it and he fell asleep. Now, I'm sure he was tired from traveling. That's true. I also think, remember, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, he's just done with life. I think this was just another form of him escaping. It wasn't sleep for his physical health. He just was like, okay, God, if you're not going to take my life, I'm just going to sleep my life away. So he falls asleep, and at once we're told that an angel reached out and touched him. Something so powerful to the physical touch, to someone walking up and just them putting their hand on your back or on your shoulder. There's something about a hug. And I know some of you are like, oh, I don't like hugs. But you know down deep within you, you know that when someone genuinely hugs you, not that fly-by pat on the back hug, I mean genuine hug, there's nothing like it. That's why Jesus over and over again modeled the power of physical touch. He touched the untouchable. And yeah, he would heal them, and that was special for them. But I think more powerful than what he did by healing them is when he touched them and said, I see you, and you're of value to me. And in this moment, when Elijah's all by himself, the angel reached out and he touched him. He said, hey, Elijah, get up and eat. He looked around, and there by his head was some fresh baked bread over hot coals. Can you Can you smell the fresh baked bread and a jar of water? He ate and drank, and then he laid down again. Again, he's just trying to sleep his life away. Then the angel of the Lord came back a second time. Now think about that. Not just once, but also another time, a second time. God's presence and persistence in Elijah's life, but think about that in your life and my life. That God is present in the touch, and he's persistent. It's not like God just showed up a second time, looked at him asleep again, and was like, I've tried, I'm out of here. I tried, but he doesn't want to give any effort. God's like, no, I'm staying beside you, Elijah. I'm with you, Elijah. I'm committed to you, Elijah. And God's saying the same thing to you. He's with you. He's present. He's persistent. He's committed. He's just not going to tap out. God's like, no. You might want to tap out, but I'm not. I'm with you, and I'm for you. Second time, and touched him a second time and said, Elijah, get up and eat, for the journey is too much, too difficult, too hard for you. When the load is too much for you to carry by yourself, God's like, I'm here with you, for you. I'm going to help you. When the journey is too dark, the valley is too dark, God goes, hey, I'm with you. I will lead you through the darkest of dark valleys. I will never let you go. When you don't have enough within you, God's like, I will be enough for you. And he's saying that to Elijah. Hey, Elijah, I get that it's too much, but I'm present and I'm persistent. So Elijah got up, he ate and drank, and then strengthened by that food. Now we got to pause there, because so many times across the storyline of the Bible, we're told that people are strengthened by God, which is powerful. Remember Elijah's story. Elijah had God's power come upon him. He outran King Ahab all the way north to Jezreel, outran him. Ahab was probably on a horse or some animal that fits a king, right? But God's power came upon Elijah. He outran him. But here we're told that he was strengthened by the food. Again, this is a big clue. God's saying, hey, I'm caring for your physical health. That your physical health is important to your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual health. And strengthened by the food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights. Now, we're not sure if that's a literal 40 days and 40 nights, or if it was more of an image that gets connected all the way back to the Israelites wandering in the same desert region for 40 years. What we do know is there's a significance of God saying, hey, you got to spiritually wander and wonder for a season. If you're like me, you hate that. You want to know the destination. If you're like me, you want to have the clear path in front of you. If you're like me, you're like, okay, God, I'll follow you, but will you write down everything you're going to do in the coming, days, months, years? I want the full plan, God. And so many times, God's like, I know what you want, but you're not going to get it because I know what's best for you. And God created this space. Again, maybe it was a literal 40 days and 40 nights. But you see, more important than how many exact days it was like God's like, hey Elijah, you got to wander for a bit. And you need to spend some time wandering. Spiritually, Elijah, you got to create some space. Emotionally, Elijah, you got to create some space. Hey Elijah, I have a good work to do in you because I still need you. And maybe that's for you right now. You're just wandering and wondering right now spiritually. And I want you to know, embrace that. Because God wants something for you to do in your life and through your life. So for 40 days and 40 nights, he wandered and wandered around. And then we're told that he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. Now, maybe you've heard of this other name, Mount Sinai. It's the more famous name, but it's also known as the mountain of God and Mount Horeb. Mount Sinai is a significant place. It was a place where God made his covenant, his relational commitment. That's what covenant is all about. God saying, I'm going to bring this to the relationship. Will you bring this to the relationship? So together, we can journey life together. It's where God made his covenant with the Hebrew people that became the mighty Israelite nation. It was Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai where God gave Moses the 10 Commandments. It was Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, the mountain of God, where God led Elijah to. You see, this is a significant place. It's a place where God does something so significant in the lives of his people. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah. All of a sudden, God starts to speak to Elijah. And he goes, hey, Elijah, what are you doing here? Now, on the surface, I think Elijah was pretty annoyed. We don't know this by the text, but I think Elijah was pretty annoyed with this question. What do you mean, what am I doing here? Hey, God, you remember I was underneath a tree. I was telling you, just wipe me off this planet. I'm done with it, but you wouldn't. I tried to sleep my life away, but you kept on sending an angel to touch me, to wake me up, to feed me. I just wanted to sleep there forever. Then you made me go wandering and wandering around the desert by myself, and now you led me here. What do you mean, what are you doing here? But you see, that's not what God was really asking of him. What he was asking of him was, hey, Elijah, what caused you to run? What caused you to escape? What caused you to leave your assistant, your servant, and isolate? Hey, Elijah, what's led you to just say, I've had enough, I'm done here, I'm tapping out? Hey, Elijah, what's really going on underneath the surface? You see, this wasn't a location or destination question God was asking. No. This is such a more important question that God was asking Elijah. He's like, hey, Elijah, you on your faith journey, what's caused you to come to this dark place? Hey, Elijah, on your mental health journey, what's caused you to come to this dark place? Hey, Elijah, what's all that stuff underneath the surface that has caused you to get here? Now, before we get to Elijah, his answer to God's question, what are you doing here? I want to pause for a moment. I've talked over and over again about Elijah's profession, prophet, job description, to go where God told him to go and do everything God had told him to do. But you see, Elijah is a big deal across, the entire Bible, not just in this moment in 1 Kings. You see, we come to the very end of what we call the Old Testament, the ancient Jewish scriptures. There was another prophet named Malachi. And the very last words that are recorded in our Old Testament, the ancient Jewish scripture, is a statement that is directed at Elijah. That simply said, before the day of dread of the Lord's, when the Lord comes again, Elijah is going to appear. This coming day, there's a precursor. Well, it's Elijah, which should cause all of us to lean in, to go, oh, well, what does that mean? Because at this point, Elijah had left this earth. Well, we step into the New Testament, the story about Jesus and the launch of the church. And all of a sudden, before Jesus is even on this planet, there's another couple who were also pregnant with a boy who would be named John the Baptist. And an angel is having a conversation with Zechariah, the dad, the soon-to-be dad. And as the angel is describing the significance of his son, he said, hey, you need to know that your son is going to have the spirit and power of Elijah. And when Jesus asked his disciples, those he handpicked to lead with him, and asked them, hey, who do men say that I am? They gave a really short list of, answers to that question. Some say John the Baptist, and some say Elijah. And then one day, Jesus grabs Peter, James, and John, three of the closest of his disciples, and they headed up a mountain. And there on that mountain, the Bible labels it as the Transfiguration. Peter, James, and John actually got a glimpse of Jesus' divinity. Him not just as man, but as the Son of God. And up on that mountain, two people from the Old Testament emerged that Jesus was literally having a conversation with. Who? Moses, who received the 10 Commandments at Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, and Elijah. See, God wasn't even remotely done with Elijah, even though Elijah was in such a dark space. And it's so easy for you to get to that place spiritually where like, well, God, you can't have this much patience with people like me. And God would say, yes, I do. I'm present, I'm persistent, and I have a plan for your life. And God looks at Elijah and goes, hey, Elijah, what are you doing here? What's really going on within you? Hey, Elijah, I'm meeting you right in the midst of your darkness. I'm meeting you right in the midst of your mess. I'm meeting you right in the midst of your pain. I'm meeting you right in the midst of all of it. And how does Elijah, this mighty prophet of God, responds? This is what he says. He goes, I've been very zealous for the Lord. I've been very passionate for God. I've been enthusiastic. I have done everything he's asked me to do. I've been all in with God. I'm very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites, all of them. That's what he's saying. All the Israelites have rejected your, and this is such a powerful moment. Remember the location. Remember the place. At Mount Horeb, at Mount Sinai, the mountain of God, where God made the covenant between himself and the Israelites, his chosen people, where he said, I'm all in with you relationally. Elijah goes, all the Israelites have rejected your covenant. It's like Elijah's like kind of sticking it to God. He's like, hey, God, you know where we are? You know that moment where you made a covenant, they agreed to it, well, they've rejected you. Right here, they rejected you. They've turned their back on you. They've torn down your altars and put your prophets to death with the sword. He goes, I'm the only one. I'm the only one left. And now they're trying to kill me too. And how does God respond? God could have gone point by point by point through everything that Elijah just said. It's as if he just kind of ignores his entitled, passionate diatribe speech. He's like, okay, Elijah, I'm just ignoring all of that for a moment. I mean, he's going to come back to it. But in the moment, he just kind of ignored it. He said, hey, Elijah, this is what I want you to do. Go out, stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord. For the Lord is, about ready to pass by. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart, shook everything. But we're told that God was not in the wind. And after the wind, there was this violent earthquake, shook the mountains. But we're told that God was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake came a fire. I mean, remember, Elijah had witnessed God's power through fire one other time in the defeat of the prophets of Baal and the prophetesses of Asherah. And now Elijah's seeing this fire again. And we're told that God was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. A whisper. And immediately, Elijah knew it was God. Immediately, Elijah knew it was God. You see, don't look for God's miraculous power and overlook his gentle whisper. So easy for us to always be looking for God in the big things. I mean, I think this is what got Elijah in trouble. Always looking for God in the big, miraculous moments. And God was reminding Elijah, hey, my power's in the whisper as well. I'm in the whisper. Have you quieted yourself down enough to hear God's whisper? You see, when our amygdala hijacks our mind, when we go running, escaping in fear of what might be, when we start isolating ourselves, which leads to ruminating, and our mind is screaming at us, it's so difficult to hear God's voice. It's why I believe God took him on a 40-day journey to get him to a place to start to quiet himself down. You see, God has a track record. I mean, this is one of those storylines through the Bible that God will quietly wait until you quiet yourself. He will just quietly wait until you get to a place where you quiet yourself to listen to his whisper. And we're told that when Elijah heard it, the whisper, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then the voice said to him, hey, Elijah, what are you doing here? Same question. God doesn't change it up. He comes right back. He's like, hey, no, Elijah, I want you to answer the real question. Again, not a destination question. What's really going on within you, Elijah? And you know how Elijah answers? The same way. He goes, I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, put your prophets to death with the sword. I'm the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too. I mean, Elijah just repeats, regurgitates. He's like, hey, God, I'm still ruminating. You're not going to stop me from ruminating. And God just has to kind of just take a breath. Because isn't that what we do with God? We just keep coming back and keep coming back. And God's like, hey, I'm trying to help you. You just got to follow me. I'm trying to lead you through a difficult season. Just come with me. And God's like, I'm present and I'm persistent. And then God says to him, go back the way you came. Hey, Elijah, you got to go face what caused you to flee. Hey, Elijah, you remember what started this entire dark journey? You got to go back to that place, the desert of Damascus. You got to go back north to the northern kingdom. You know who's there. You know what caused you. You got to face your fear. You got to face your anxiety. You got to go back. And then he tells them, there's 3 very specific tasks I want you to do. He goes, first of all, I want you to anoint Hazael. And this was God's role in kind of international politics to make it known that he was leading the world. Then he goes, hey, I want you to replace King Ahab and anoint a new king, Jehu. And then God goes, I want you to anoint another prophet. His name's Elisha. And then God says, and oh, by the way, Elijah, you said all the Israelites? That's not true. God goes, there's 7,000. Now, again, we don't know if this is a symbolic number, 7 meaning number of perfection, and it's 7,000, so it's a big number. So we're not sure if this is literal or figurative, but what God is saying is, hey, Elijah, there's still a lot of Israelites that have not worshiped Baal, who have not worshiped Asherah. Hey, Elijah, I know what you're thinking, which influenced your emotions, which influenced your behavior, but your thoughts kind of skewed. Your thoughts are kind of off. Your thoughts have betrayed you. Just because you think it and feel it doesn't mean it's true. You see, God did something powerful in Elijah's life, and he wants to do the same thing in your life. God recognized that the 800-pound gorilla was wreaking havoc in his life. And what does God choose to do? He's like, hey, Elijah, I got to calibrate you for a moment. I got to calibrate your thinking. You see, we think about this whole part of his journey. What does God do specifically? He calibrates every step. He calibrates his health, which is important in our mental health journey. Our physical health influences our mental health. So what does God do? He feeds them fresh baked bread. Smell it. Gives them water. And he allows them to sleep. It's important. What does God do next? He takes them on a spiritual wandering journey. He just goes, hey, you just got to spend some space. You need to take a deep breath. You need to recalibrate some things. He didn't send them immediately back on another mission. He goes, hey, there's a short period of time that you just need to calibrate. So I'm just going to allow you to do some wandering. And through that wandering, maybe some wondering, and you and I we're going to have a conversation together. And then what does God do? He shows up, not in the wind, and not in the fire, and not in the earthquake, but in a gentle whisper. He goes, hey, Elijah, you keep looking for me in all the mighty and miraculous things, but don't overlook my whisper. Don't overlook the small things that I am doing. Don't overlook how I'm present and persistent. Again, so many times we're looking for God in the big things, and so many times God's like, no. Look for the small things, because I'm always active. And sometimes we got to quiet ourselves, because God will quietly wait until we do. And then what does God do? He says, hey, you got to go back. You got to face your fear. You got to face your anxiety. Hey, that thing that caused you to run, you got to go confront it. And we don't like to do that, do we? And God says, you got to go back. You got to face it. And then God addresses, two of the pretty significant ruminating errors. Elijah goes, all the Israelites are worshiping Baal and Asherah. And God goes, no, it's not all. It's not all. There's a sizable contingent of Israelites that have not worshiped other gods, and they're still following me. And oh, by the way, Elijah, when you said you're the only prophet left, not true, Elijah. Just because you think it and feel it doesn't mean it's true. He goes, I want you to go get Elisha because I've picked him as well. You're not the only one. How does God need to calibrate your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual self? What areas? Are you going to lean into God to allow him to calibrate? Remember, God is present and he is persistent. He won't give up on you. He is with you and he's for you. I'm going to pray and then we're going to give you just a short amount of time to process through two very specific questions. I just want to encourage you. When I say amen, lean into these questions. Have a conversation with God. And remember, no matter what you think or feel, God's with you and he won't leave you. Dear Heavenly Father, right now, I celebrate the fact that you never gave up on Elijah. Because you've promised you will not give up on us. That you're with us, you're committed for us, that you want to walk and lead our lives. Lord, may we just be very transparent. The question you're asking is, what are you doing here? What got you here? What's really going on here? Lord, may we lean into you as you continue to calibrate our lives. In your name I pray. Amen.
Never know
And that is our service for today. I hope that you got something from the message. I hope that the music lifted you up. I hope that if you are struggling, you are in just a down spot, maybe Angel Story connected with you, please reach out to somebody here at TCC. We're a loving group of people that just want to come alongside and help. So with that said, I hope to see you back here for part 5 of our 800-pound gorilla series.